The night Seraphina's body first betrayed her, the full moon hung low and merciless over the woods. The Alpha King's scent drifted in on the wind, a dark, inescapable warning. She spent 28 years believing she was spared the curse of heat, the chains that bound every other woman she'd ever known. But fate, it seemed, had only been waiting for the right moment and the right man to shatter that illusion. What began as a quiet fever in a border village would end in a forest where a king who had sworn never to claim anyone whispered words that would bind them both. No one can know about tonight. And somewhere deep inside her, something ancient stirred for the first time. Hungry, waiting, watching. Seraphina woke to heat. Not the comfortable warmth of a hearth or summer sun, but something vicious and liquid that poured through her veins like molten iron. She sat up in the narrow bed of her healer's cottage, sheets already soaked through with sweat, and pressed both hands to her stomach as if she could physically hold herself together. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Her skin felt too tight, too sensitive. Every brush of linen against her thighs sent a jolt straight to her core. She sucked in a breath and tasted pine on the air, sharp, storm-charged, unmistakably male, and her body answered before her mind could catch up. A deep, aching clench low in her belly made her gasp aloud. No, she knew the signs. She had delivered enough babies. Soothed enough Omgeza through their cycles, watched the way their eyes glazed and their scents sweetened when he took them. She had always been grateful that it had never happened to her. No heats meant no Alpha could scent her and decide she belonged to him. She could stay exactly as she was, independent, useful, untouched. Another wave rolled through her, this one sharper, forcing her knees to her chest. She bit the inside of her cheek until copper flooded her tongue. Outside, the village slept, but the summit encampment on the ridge road was alive. Torches, laughter, the low rumble of Alpha voices carrying on the night wind. And one scent cut through them all. King Alistair. She had seen him ride through Mistwood Vale that morning. Tall, broad-shouldered, black hair tied back, jaw set. The rumors followed him like smoke. Ruthless in war and yielding in council, unbondable by choice. Every noble daughter in the realm had been offered to him, everyone had been refused. Seraphina had felt nothing when he passed. No pull, no spark. Just the same detached curiosity she reserved for any powerful stranger passing through. Until now. She stumbled out of bed, bare feet slapping the cold flagstones. Her night shift clung to her damp skin. She needed to get away from the village before anyone realized the quiet healer who never blushed was suddenly radiating Omega in full, desperate bloom. The root cellar would have been safer, dark, cool, locked from the inside, but the thought of being trapped made her skin crawl. She needed air. She needed distance. She needed the glade. Her mother's voice drifted up from memory. If ever the world becomes too loud, find the old oak circle by the stream. The trees there remember how to be gentle. She pulled on her darkest cloak, shoved her feet into boots without lacing them, and slipped out the back door into the night. She kept to the shadows, moving fast despite the cramps that tried to double her over every few steps. Each breath dragged more of his scent into her lungs, and each inhale made the heat coil tighter, hotter, hungrier. By the time she reached the tree line, she was shaking. The whispering woods swallowed her whole. Branches clawed at her cloak, roots reached for her ankles. She didn't slow. The path to the glade was faint, but she followed it by instinct, letting the ache in her body guide her as much as her feet. She burst into the glade without warning. It was smaller than she remembered. Moss so thick it looked like velvet underfoot, a narrow stream cutting through the center, 7 ancient oaks standing in a perfect circle. The stream's murmur was the only sound. Seraphina dropped to her knees at the water's edge, scooped icy water in trembling hands, and splashed it across her face, her throat, the back of her neck. The shock helped for half a heartbeat. Then another cramps eased her, this one so deep she cried out, a raw, broken sound that echoed off the oaks. She curled forward, forehead to moss, palms digging into the earth. That's when she heard footsteps. Soft, deliberate, coming from the far side of the circle. Seraphina's head snapped up. A man stepped from the shadows between 2 oaks. Tall, broad, dressed in midnight leathers that absorbed the moonlight. The golden clasp at his throat caught her eye, 3 interlocking crescents. Ember eyes, royal sigil. King Alistair. He stopped at the edge of the glade, 10 paces away, and simply looked at her. Storm-gray eyes locked on hers, pupils blown wide. He inhaled once, slow, deep, and his entire body went rigid. Omega, he said. Seraphina scrambled backward until her shoulders hit an oak trunk. The bark bit into her skin through the cloak. "Your Majesty." Her voice cracked. How embarrassing. He didn't move closer, but the air between them thickened. His scent rolled over her in waves. Pine and leather and rot. Their body answered with a fresh surge of heat so intense her vision blurred. "I'm not," she tried again, forcing the words out. "This isn't. I've never." "Quiet," he ordered, low and commanding. "I know." He took one careful step forward, then another, moving like he was approaching something wild and wounded. Serafina's heart slammed against her ribs. Every instinct urged her to run, to hide, to fight. But her body, traitorous, fevered, wanted only one thing. Closer. "You're in pain," he said quietly. "It will pass." "Alone? In these woods? During the Alpha Summit?" A humorless breath left him. "You're either very brave or very desperate." "Both," she admitted. "And I'd rather die here than let some Alpha decide I belong to him tonight." Something flickered across his face. Anger, but seemingly not directed at her. His hands flexed at his sides, knuckles whitening. "I'm not here to claim anything," he said. Then a faint smile ghosted across his lips. "Not unless you ask." She held back a bitter laugh. "Forgive me if I don't trust the word of a king." His jaw tightened. "I know what it feels like to have someone try to force a bond where none should exist." The honesty in his voice stopped her cold. He took another step, stopping just out of reach. Close enough that she could see the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the tension in the line of his shoulders, the way his chest rose and fell to fast. Another cramp rolled through her, forcing her to press her thighs together. A soft, mortified whimper escaped before she could stop it. Alistair's eyes darkened, his nostrils flared. His wolf was close to the surface. She could feel it in the way the air around him seemed to hum with restrained power. "I can help." "Without taking." "There are ways. I've studied them." She stared at him, stunned. Kings didn't study how to ease an Omega's heat without claiming her. Kings took, or they paid someone else to take. "Why would you?" "Because I remember what it felt like to be reduced to biology instead of choice." His voice dropped lower. "And I won't do that to anyone else." Another wave hit, harder this time. She doubled forward, palms slamming into the moss. When she looked up again, he was closer, kneeling now, still an arm's length away. "I can't," she whispered. "If anyone finds out." "No one will." The promise felt heavier than any royal decree. "Not for me." He held out his hand, palm up, offering. Serafina stared at it. Calloused from sword and rain, steady despite the tension vibrating through his frame. The heat surged again, but this time it tangled with something new: curiosity. The terrifying possibility that the most dangerous man in Ember might be the only one who wouldn't treat her like prey. She lifted her trembling fingers and placed them in his. The moment their skin met, a rush of heat started at their joined hands and raced up her arm, across her chest, down her spine. Her breath caught. His did too. Through the contact came flashes, unbidden. Sunlight on her bare feet, running through these woods as a child, laughter echoing off trees. Then darkness, a battlefield at dawn, blood on his hands, regret carved deep in his eyes. The images overlapped, blurred, then vanished, leaving only the after-image of a strange, bright thread pulling taut between them. Her heat roared in response. She gasped, hips rocking forward involuntarily. Shame flooded her cheeks even as desire coiled tighter. Alistair made a rough sound. His free hand came up to cup the back of her neck, thumb pressing gently against her pulse. "Breathe with me," he murmured. She tried but failed. Something alive moved between them. Warm, insistent, sharing flickers of fear and protectiveness and raw need. And beneath it all, deeper than either of them could name, something stirred in her chest. Wings, scales, fire. Alistair leaned in, forehead resting against hers, breath mingling. "No one can know about tonight," he whispered, the words both vow and warning. Serafina closed her eyes, trembling in his hold. She didn't know if she believed him, but right now, with his hand on her neck and fire racing through her veins, she knew one thing with terrible certainty: there was no going back. Alistair kept his forehead pressed to hers for one long heartbeat longer, then slowly pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. His thumb still rested against her pulse, feeling the frantic rhythm there. A low growl rumbled from his chest. His wolf was there, pacing in his thoughts, half feral. Touch her more. Make her pain stop. He shoved the instinct down, jaw clenching. "Lean back," he said, voice strained. "Against the tree. It'll ground you." She did, the rough bark a welcome distraction against her spine. He didn't touch her immediately. Instead, he shrugged off his cloak, spreading it over the moss like a makeshift blanket. Then, with great care, he guided her to sit fully, her legs stretching out before her. He started with her wrists, gentle pressure at the pulse points, thumbs circling slowly, drawing the fever outward instead of letting it coil inward. She hissed through her teeth as the first touch sent sparks racing up her arms. "Too much?" he asked. No, her voice cracked on the lie. "Keep going." He moved to her temples next, fingers threading into her damp hair, massaging in slow, firm strokes. Each pass pulled a soft, involuntary sound from her throat, half relief, half need. He leaned closer, letting his breath ghost over the sensitive skin behind her ear. Then, carefully, he pressed his nose to the crook of her neck and inhaled. Not biting, not even grazing teeth. Just breathing her in, letting his own scent sink into her pores in return. Serafina shuddered violently, her hands fisted in the moss. "What are you?" "Scent sharing. It dulls the edge. Lets your body think it's been answered without." He trailed off. Without the claiming bite. Without the full bond snapping into place. Without him losing what little control he had left. She turned her face toward him, cheek brushing his. "It's working," she whispered. "A little, but not enough." He could feel how much more she needed. The heat was still climbing, demanding more than touches and shared breath. His wolf growled again, louder this time, vibrating through his chest. Serafina's eyes widened. "Is that you?" "Me?" he confirmed grimly. "He's not happy I'm holding back." She swallowed. "What does he want?" Alistair's gaze dropped to her throat, to the smooth, unmarked skin where her pulse hammered. "To mark you. To make sure no other alpha even thinks of coming near." Her breath hitched. Shame and desire warred across her face. "And what about you?" "I want the same thing," he admitted. "But I won't take it. Not when you're fighting your own body." She closed her eyes, a tear slipped free, tracking down her temple. "I hate this. I hate not being in control." Another cramp hit her then, sharp enough to arch her back off the moss. A broken whimper escaped. Alistair moved without thinking, sliding one arm beneath her shoulders, the other across her hips, pulling her against his chest. He sat back on his heels, settling her in his lap so her back rested against his front, her head tucked under his chin. "Better?" he asked. She nodded against his throat. "Warmer." "I'm running hot." She could feel his lip pull back into a smile. "Always do when my wolf's this close." She let out a shaky laugh. "Lucky me." In response, he wrapped both arms around her waist, one hand slaying low on her belly where the cramps were worst. Firm pressure, steady heat. His wolf approved, purring in satisfaction. "Her skin is soft. Scent clings to us now." Minutes passed like that. Her breathing evened out a fraction. But then the thread pulsed again. Another flash. Him on his knees in a tent, magic coiling around his throat like invisible chains. Panic, rage. She pulled back. "What happened to you?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Alistair went still, his eyes met hers, shadowed. "Someone tried to force a bond on me years ago, during what should have been peace talks." His voice was rough, laced with old fury. "They thought they could control me through it. Make me a puppet." Serafina's breath caught. Did it work? No, a muscle in his jaw ticked. But it left scars. He squeezed her hands gently. "That's why I will never coerce you." His eyes darkened with hunger as he said it, pupils swallowing the gray. "Thank you," she whispered. They stayed like that through the night's deepest hours. His touches remained firm without crossing lines. Flashes came and went. Her steady hand saving a child from fever. Him executing a traitor on a windswept hill. He was no saint. The battlefield showed choices soaked in blood, survival over softness. Yet here, with her, he chose restraint. As dawn grayed the sky, her heat finally ebbed to a dull ache. Alistair pulled back, breathing hard, his wolf whining in protest. "We need to go," he said, voice strained, "before the light finds us." Serafina nodded, legs unsteady as she stood. He helped her with her cloak, fingers lingering at her collar. "Stay out of sight tomorrow. The summoned alphas will be restless. Your scent will carry on the wind." She gave a weak laugh. "I'll try to smell less like desperation." His eyes darkened. "Tomorrow night. Same place. If the heat returns, she searched his face. And if it doesn't, then we pretend this never happened. Then he was gone, melting into the trees like shadow. Serafina stood there alone for a long moment, hand pressed to the spot he'd scented, feeling the ghost of his warmth. Dawn was breaking. She turned toward the village, legs unsteady, body still humming. And somewhere deep inside her chest, a shadow with wings twitched awake. In the summit encampment, Alistair slipped back into his tent unseen. He washed quickly, changing into fresh leathers. But the thread pulled at him, a bright tug toward the village below. Flashes of her face, her strength, her fear, and something else. A winged shadow that made his wolf bristle with curiosity. What is she? The day was filled with negotiations with border lords, but his mind kept wandering to her. Rumors were already traveling through the camp. Alphas claiming they'd scented an omega in heat near the woods last night, late blooming and unclaimed. Alistair's wolf growled internally. Lord Malachor, his sharp-eyed advisor with a face like carved marble, noticed during a break in talks. He sidled up. You seem distracted, Your Majesty. The woods called you last night. Alistair's gaze hardened. I needed air. Malachor smiled thinly. Of course, though I hear whispers of an omega blooming late. Dangerous in a camp full of alphas. Alistair kept his voice even. Handle the rumors quietly. As you wish. But Malachor's gaze lingered, investigative. That night, Serafina dreamed she ran through endless woods. Behind her, a massive wolf pursued, not hunting but chasing with glee. Its eyes glowed amber, and when it leapt, she twisted mid-air, wings unfurling from her back, fire blooming in her throat. She woke gasping, skin hot. Faint iridescent marks shimmered along her collarbones like scales that vanished when she blinked. She traced them with shaking fingers, dreadful in her body. What was happening to her? In his tent, Alistair bolted upright from the same dream, sheets twisted around his legs, heart slamming. His wolf was already losing its mind. She has wings, pretty scales. Nibble her tail gently. The next day, Serafina's heat lingered. Whatever was inside her was growing. Subtle scales flickering on her skin, fire warming her veins during stress. She hid the marks with long sleeves, but predatory alphas from the summit prowled mist would veil's edges. One, a brutish lord named Garrick, cornered her at the market, nose twitching. You smell ripe. Serafina's heart raced. Fire stirred in her chest. Hot and angry, she slipped away, but the encounter left her shaking. At moonrise, she slipped back into the woods. Alistair was already waiting. This time he didn't speak. He simply opened his arms. She walked into them. He buried his face in her hair, inhaling like a male starved. His hands roamed her back, possessive but careful, mapping every inch he could reach without crossing the line. Then he stiffened, pulling back just enough to search her face. Who was it? He asked, voice low and edged with fury. The one who scared you today. I can smell him on you. Say the word and I'll handle him permanently. Serafina swallowed but shook her head. I'm okay. He nodded, jaw tight, but his hold on her didn't loosen. You're burning again, he said against her temple. He guided her deeper into the glade, sat with his back to an oak, and pulled her between his thighs. She settled against his chest, head on his shoulder, letting his arms lock around her like armor. His heartbeat thundered beneath her ear, fast and steady. She shifted slightly in his lap. Alistair's breath hitched. Careful, he warned. I'm trying. She turned her face into the warm hollow of his throat and inhaled. Pine, storm, him. Her core clenched hard enough to make her gasp. Alistair. His name on her lips dragged a growl from deep in his chest. Don't say my name like that unless you want me to lose what's left of my control. She smiled despite the fear still clawing at her ribs. Would that be so bad? He went utterly still. Then slowly, he tilted her chin up until their eyes locked. I'm already hanging by a thread, Serafina. His thumb brushed her lower lip. The sound of her name in his mouth made her heart stutter. She swallowed. I'm scared of what this is. She hesitated for a beat before lifting the edge of her collar, exposing the faint, shifting iridescent marks that had appeared again tonight. He studied her carefully. Recognition flashed across his face, brief but unmistakable. Silver Veil, he said quietly. She frowned. What's that? An old bloodline suppressed centuries ago. His fingertip traced one of the marks that shimmered under his touch. Omgeza, who carried dragon traits. They shifted into fierce dragons, fire breathers, flyers. Their bonds could purify arc magic, burn away enchantments. I thought the line was extinct. Her stomach plummeted. And if it isn't? Her voice cracked. If it's me? He met her eyes unflinching. Then you're more dangerous than either of us realized. And more valuable. She yanked her collar back into place, suddenly cold despite the heat simmering under her skin. My village. They'll never accept this. They already look at me weird because I never shifted, never went into heat. If they find out she swallowed hard. If they find out I'm something else entirely, they'll drive me out. Or worse. Alistair cupped her face in both hands, thumbs stroking her cheekbones. Listen to me. You are not something else. You are Seraphina. The healer who stayed up 3 nights straight to save a child from fever. Who delivers babies in snowstorms without flinching. Who walked into these woods alone rather than let anyone claim what isn't freely given. Whatever else you carry, dragon or fire or wings, it doesn't change who you are. It only makes you more of what you've always been, extraordinary. Her eyes stung. She blinked hard. What about you? She whispered. Will you accept this? He leaned in until their foreheads touched. I already have. A small, fierce smile curved his mouth. From the moment you placed your hand in mine, I knew I'd guard whatever you are with everything I have. She closed her eyes, letting his words chase away some of the fear. The heat between them ebbed and flowed in slow waves. When the sky began to lighten, he helped her stand, fingers lingering at her waist. Tomorrow, same place, he said. She nodded. He watched her go, eyes dark with hunger and something softer, more dangerous inside him. His wolf paced in restless circles. She leaves again. When will she stay? When will she see us as mate, not just shadow in the woods? The beast huffed a low, frustrated sound that vibrated through Alistair's chest. Behind them, in the deepest shadows of the oaks, a faint rustle broke the silence. A cloaked figure melted back into the trees, the glint of a silver sigil catching the dying moonlight before vanishing. The spy had seen enough. The report arrived before the first light crested the ridge, a hurried whisper in his tent. Details of the king's secret meeting with the village healer, iridescent marks on her skin, a dragon's shimmer. Lord Malakor's lips thinned into a smile. He had suspected something from the old scrolls, the forbidden ones his family had preserved after the purge. Silver Veil bloodline. Omgeza, whose late blooms awaken only in the presence of a true mate, stirring dragon shifts that could sear away dark enchantments. If the healer carried it, her heat surging near Alistair explained everything. The king's distraction, the rumors of an unclaimed Omega. She wasn't just a threat, she was a weapon. One he could wield to secure his grip on the throne. By midday, Malakor had his plan. Seraphina felt the change before she saw it. The village square buzzed with more than the usual market chatter, eyes lingering on her longer, whispers cutting off when she approached. She kept her sleeves down, hiding the scales that now flickered more often, like a heartbeat she couldn't control. The fire in her veins warmed whenever stress hit, a low burn that made her palms itch. She focused on her work, grinding herbs for a villager's fever tea, measuring doses with steady hands. But the thread tugged at her, Alistair's protectiveness echoing through it, faint but insistent. He was worried. She felt it like a storm building. That evening, as she locked her cottage door, footsteps crunched behind her. She spun, heart slamming. Derek, the brutish alpha from the market, loomed in the twilight, 2 of his packmates flanking him. His nose twitched, eyes gleaming yellow. Thought I'd let you slip away again, ripe one. That scent of yours has been driving me mad all day. Seraphina backed against the door. Leave me alone. Garrick laughed, stepping closer. Or what? You're unmarked, unclaimed, and blooming so late. Makes a man wonder if you're fair game. His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. The fire inside her boiled over, hot and uncontrollable. A small flame escaped her lips, scorching his sleeve. Derek yelped, jerking back, but his packmates lunged. One tackled her to the ground, knee pressing into her back. Which, he snarled. What the hell was that? Seraphina struggled, the dragon stirring wildly, wings flexing inside her, scales rippling under her skin. She tasted smoke on her tongue. Then a roar shattered the night. Alistair exploded from the shadows like a storm unleashed. His wolf half shifted, claws extended, eyes glowing amber, fangs bared. He slammed into the first packmate, talons raking across the man's chest in a spray of blood. The alpha howled, crumpling. Garrick whirled, shifting fully into a massive grey wolf. He charged Alistair, jaws snapping. Alistair dodged, his partial shift making him faster, deadlier. He grabbed Garrick by the scruff and hurled him into a wall with bone-cracking force. "You touched what's mine," Alistair growled, voice more beast than man. The second packmate bolted, but Alistair was on him in an instant, claws sinking into his shoulder, dragging him down. "Run back to your camp," he ordered. "Tell them what happens when you hunt in my territory." The man scrambled away, bleeding and whimpering. Garrick shifted back, furious, clutching his side. "She's just a village Omega. You can't." Alistair's hand wrapped around Garrick's throat, lifting him off the ground. His wolf roared in his mind. "And him. Protect the shiny one." Serafina pushed to her feet, flames still flickering at her fingertips. "Alistair, don't. If you kill him here, they'll use it against you at the summit." He hesitated, eyes locking on hers. The dragon in her responded, a warm pulse through their bond, calming his rage. Slowly, he dropped Garrick in the dirt. "Leave before I change my mind." Garrick staggered off, cursing and clutching his burned arm. Alistair turned to her, claws retracting, fangs sliding back, but his eyes still glowed amber flecked with wolf. He crossed the distance, hands framing her face, thumbs brushing soot from her cheeks. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, adrenaline still roaring through her veins. Her hands trembled as she looked down at them, scales shimmering faintly across her knuckles, the afterglow of fire fading from her fingertips. She breathed flame in front of witnesses. "I didn't mean to." Her voice cracked. They saw. Only then did she register the soft shuffle of feet, the low murmurs. Villagers had crept out of nearby cottages and alleys, drawn by the roar of the fight, the sharp smell of blood and scorched cloth. Faces she'd known for years stared back. The baker's wife clutching her shawl, a cluster of young mothers wide-eyed and silent. They'd seen the flames, the scales. Fear spiked through Serafina, sharp, cold. These were her people. The ones she'd stitched up, delivered babies for, sat with through long nights of fever. Now they looked at her like she was something foreign, dangerous. "They saw everything," she whispered. Alistair's arms banded around her like steel, pulling her flush against his chest. His scent wrapped around her like a blanket. She pressed her forehead to his shoulder, heart hammering. "They'll be afraid of me now. They'll talk, they'll learn." He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. "You breathed fire to defend yourself. That's not a monster. That's strength." Behind them the whispers grew. Fearful, awed, uncertain. Alistair's jaw flexed. "Come with me to the encampment. It's not safe here anymore." She pulled back just enough to look at him. "And walk into a den of alphas. No." His eyes darkened, wolf flashing again. "Then I'll come to you. Every night. Every hour if I have to." That night the village settled uneasily. Lanterns stayed lit longer than usual, doors bolted earlier. Whispers about fire and scales and the king's fury spread like smoke. Serafina barred her own door, drew the shutters, and tried to sleep. The dragon inside her stirred restlessly, while the thread between her and Alistair tugged like a live wire. She didn't hear him arrive. One moment the room was silent except for the crackle of the dying hearth. The next the latch clicked softly, and Alistair was inside, cloak shedding snow from the ridge path. He locked the door behind him without a sound. She sat up in bed, sheet spooling around her waist, pulse kicking hard. "You came." "I said I would." He crossed the room, stopping at the foot of the bed. Moonlight through the shutters striped his face, sharp cheekbones, shadowed jaw. Eyes locked on her. Then he sank to one knee beside the bed, close enough that she could feel his heat through the blankets. His hand lifted, slow, deliberate, and cupped the side of her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone, fingers sliding into her hair. His gaze dropped to her mouth. "I've wanted to do this since the glade." Her breath hitched. "Then why haven't you?" "Because once I start, I won't want to stop." The confession hung between them, heavy and electric. Serafina leaned forward first, just an inch, enough to close half the distance, enough to make his pupils blow wide. His control snapped all at once. He surged up, one knee sinking into the mattress, mouth finding hers in a kiss that started careful, testing, tasting, and turned heated in the space of a heartbeat. His lips were firm, demanding, flavored with pine and winter air. One hand cradled the back of her head, the other slid to her waist, pulling her flush against him. She opened for him on a soft gasp. His tongue stroked in, slow at first, then deeper, hungrier. A growl rumbled from his chest straight into her mouth. Her fingers curled into his shirt, tugging him closer. The dragon inside her answered, warmth blooming across her skin, flames licking along her arms like candlelight illuminating them both in soft gold. He broke away just long enough to drag his lips along her jaw down the column of her throat. "You taste like fire," he rasped against her pulse. Teeth grazed, not biting, but promising. She arched, hands sliding under his shirt, palms flat against the hard planes of his back. "Alistair," he groaned at his name, returning to her mouth with renewed desperation. The kiss turned messy, urgent, tongues tangling, breaths mingling, small nips and soothing licks. His claws pricked lightly through the thin fabric of her night shift, reminding her how close his control was to fraying. "I could kiss you until dawn," he said, voice wrecked and still want more. She smiled against his lips, shaky. "Then don't stop." But even as she said it, the night outside pressed closer. A distant shout from the ridge, summit guards perhaps. A faint scent of smoke on the wind. They ignored it at first. The heat between them was louder, his mouth on hers again. Deeper this time, hands sliding under her shift to grip bare skin. She arched into him, fingers digging into his shoulders, the dragon inside her purring with approval. But the smoke thickened. It crept under the door first, thin tendrils curling across the floorboards like fingers. Then the heat changed, not the sweet burn of their bodies, but something harsher, acrid. Alistair broke the kiss abruptly, head snapping toward the door. His nostrils flared. "Something's burning." Seraphina blinked, still dazed, lips swollen. He was already moving, setting her on her feet, crossing the room into strides. He pressed a palm to the door, then yanked it back with a hiss. "Too hot." She followed, heart kicking hard. The wooden panels radiated warmth like an oven. Through the narrow gap under the door, orange light flickered. "Right. Wrong." "The cottage," she whispered. Alistair spun, eyes amber-flecked and furious. They barred it from outside. He tested the latch, jammed, shouldered the door. Solid oak, reinforced. The wood groaned but held. Smoke poured thicker now, black and choking, curling up the walls. Seraphina coughed, eyes watering. "Window," he grabbed her wrist, pulling her toward the back wall. The single-shuttered window was small, high. He ripped the wooden bar free, smashed the glass with his elbow. Shards rained down. Cold night air rushed in, feeding the flames behind them. The roar grew, fire racing up the thatch, timbers cracking. He boosted her first, hands firm on her waist, lifting her to the sill. She twisted and dropped into the yard. Alistair followed, leaping through the frame in one fluid motion, landing beside her in a crouch. He yanked her to her feet just as the roof groaned and a section collapsed inward with a deafening crack. Sparks spiraled into the sky. Villagers were already gathering. Lanterns bobbed in the dark. They'd come running when the flames lit the night. But no one carried buckets, no one shouted for water. They stood frozen, eyes wide on her, on the faint scales shimmering along her arms, on the king himself shirt torn, blood on his knuckles from the broken glass, standing between her and the crowd like a shield. Seraphina's stomach twisted. A figure pushed forward from the back. Garrick, arm bandaged from their earlier clash, face twisted with ugly satisfaction. Behind him, 3 Summitriders in dark cloaks, silver sidles glinting. Malacor's men. "There she is," Garrick called, voice carrying. "The dragon witch, look at her scales. Fire, she bewitched the king. Malacor's orders. Take her alive if she yields, dead if she fights." The villagers shifted, fear rippling through them like wind over wheat. A few stepped back, others gripped tools tighter, uncertain. Alistair shoved Seraphina behind him, claws extending fully now, wolf surging. "Stand down," he commanded, alpha power rolling out in a wave that made half the riders flinch. "She is under my protection." Garrick sneered. "Your protection ends when the council names her traitor. The scrolls prove it. Her bloodline tried to burn the throne once, she's doing it again." Seraphina felt her dragon rise, scales rippling across her shoulders, wings straining, fire building in her throat. She stepped forward beside him, flames licking her fingertips. "If you want me," she said quietly, voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. "Come and take me." Garrick laughed, then signaled. The riders advanced. Alistair exploded into motion, wolf form ripping outward in a golden blur. He slammed into the first rider, massive jaws clamping the man's arm and yanking him clean from the saddle. The horse reared, screaming, then bolted into the dark. The rider hit dirt hard. Alistair was on him before he could roll, claws raking deep across chest and throat. Serafina exhaled, flame bursting in a tight, controlled arc that scorched cloaks and sent to riders reeling back, cursing. An arrow hissed toward her face. She swatted it aside with a clawed hand, the shaft ignited midair, crumbling to ash before it hit the ground. Garrick charged on foot, sword flashing high. Alistair shifted back mid-leap, human again, ribs already bleeding from an earlier slash, and met steel with talon. Garrick swung viciously. Alistair ducked, raked across the man's ribs in return. Garrick staggered, blood soaking his tunic. A rider flanked Alistair, blade arcing toward his unprotected back. Serafina roared, dragon voice deep, resonant, shaking the ground, and launched herself. Her claws tore through leather and mail. The man went down screaming, clutching the ruin of his shoulder. The fight turned savage. Fire snapping, blood licking the frozen earth, steel ringing against scale and claw. Alistair fought like a storm, every strike shielding her. But the riders pressed, coordinated, relentless. One slipped through, dagger flashing straight for her throat. Alistair spun, taking the blade across his ribs instead. Steel bit deep. He grunted, blood blooming dark and fast. Pain exploded through the bond, sharp and white-hot. Serafina snarled. Her wings snapped free, smaller than legend but fierce, iridescent, catching firelight like molten glass. She let out a purifying blaze, hotter, brighter than before, that engulfed the attacker's weapon. Steel melted to slag in his hand. He screamed, dropping the molten hilt and scrambling back. The remaining riders faltered. One horse reared, throwing its rider. Another bolted. Garrick staggered backward, face pale, sword trembling. "She's a monster." Alistair's claws closed around Garrick's throat, lifting him off the ground. "Do not insult her." Garrick choked, feet kicking air. Alistair dropped him hard into the dirt. The last riders wheeled their horses and fled, hooves pounding toward the ridge in panicked retreat. Silence crashed down, broken only by crackling flames and ragged breathing. Serafina dropped beside Alistair, hands pressing his ribs. Fire flowed from her palms, not burning but healing, sealing torn flesh with silver light. He exhaled sharply, eyes finding hers through the haze of pain. "You're hurt," she whispered, voice shaking. "I'll live." He caught her wrist, pulling her close. "You've shifted." Wings fire. "God, Serafina." She trembled, wings folding back into her skin, scales fading to faint shimmer. "I didn't know I could do that much." He cupped her face, thumbs brushing soot and blood from her cheeks. "You're magnificent." Alistair rose now, wincing, arm banding around her waist. "We need to move. Malik or won't stop." She nodded, leaning into him. "Where?" "The ridge. My tent. No one will touch you there." She glanced at the empty square. Cottages dark now, streets deserted. They ran. They saw a dragon. His voice was rough, proud. "They'll remember." He took her hand and they disappeared into the night, firelight fading behind them. But in the shadows of the ridge, Malachor watched from a high vantage, eyes narrowed. The healer had wings. The king had bled for her. The game had changed. The ridge path was treacherous in the dark, loose shale underfoot, wind whipping snow from the peaks. Alistair kept Serafina close, one arm locked around her waist, the other hand gripping her so tightly her knuckles ached. They reached his private tent just before dawn. Guards snapped to attention at the sight of him, blood-soaked, half-dressed, the healer at his side with faint scales still shimmering on her arms. Alistair didn't slow. "Double the watch," he barked. "No one in or out without my word. If Malachor's men show, kill them." The captain nodded, eyes flicking to Serafina with barely concealed shock before looking away. Inside the tent was warm, thick furs on the ground, a low table scattered with maps and sealed missives. Alistair dropped the flap behind them and turned to her. "Strip." She blinked. "What?" "You're burned. The arrow graze on your arm is enchanted. It's spreading." He was already moving, yanking open a chest, pulling out clean bandages and a jar of dark salve. "Let me see." Serafina peeled off her scorched cloak, then the shift beneath. The wound on her forearm was ugly. Black veins creeping outward from the puncture, skin around it blistered and cold. She hissed when he touched it. "Poison," he muttered. "Malakor's signature. Burns slow, clouds the mind." His fingers worked quickly, smearing salve over the wound, wrapping it tight. "This will slow it, but you need rest. And I need to think." She caught his wrist. "You're bleeding worse." She glanced down. His ribs were a mess, shirt torn open, blood still seeping. "It's nothing." "It's not." She pushed him toward the furs. "Sit." He grudgingly lowered himself to the thick pelts. Serafina knelt between his legs, hands hovering over the gash. Flames flickered along her fingertips, soft and silver. She pressed her palms to the wound. The torn flesh knit together under her touch, black veins retreating. Alistair breathed hard, head dropping forward until his forehead rested against hers. "Your dragon's getting stronger," he murmured. "I don't know how to control it." Her voice cracked. "What if I hurt someone? What if I hurt you?" "You won't." His hands cupped her face. "You healed me. You're not a monster, Serafina. Your power. Power can be learned." She searched his eyes. "What if the council believes Malakor? If they name me traitor?" His jaw tightened. "Then we fight the council. You go to war over me. I'd burn the kingdom down for you." His words came out raw and filtered. His wolf echoed them through the bond. "Our shiny fire mate. Snuggle her. Bite any enemy." Serafina's throat closed. She leaned in, kissing him fiercely. Gratitude, fear, need crashing together. He kissed back with desperate hunger, hands fisting in her hair, pulling her closer like she might slip away. "Sleep," he whispered. "I'll watch." She shook her head. "Not yet." They sat like that for hours. Her curled against his chest, his arms locked around her, listening to the wind howl outside. Dawn came, gray and bitter. A runner arrived, white-faced, breathless. "The council summons you, Your Majesty." "Immediately." "They've received evidence against the healer." Alistair's eyes flashed. "What evidence?" "Scrolls, old records. Claims she descends from traitors who tried to burn the throne with dragon fire. They're calling her a threat to the realm. They want her brought before them in chains." Serafina went still. Alistair stood, slow, dangerous. "Tell them I'm coming alone." The runner fled. Serafina rose. "You can't go. It's a trap." "I know." He cupped her face. "But if I don't, they'll send soldiers here, and I won't let them touch you." She gripped his wrists. "Then I'm coming with you. If they want me in chains, they'll have to put them on me themselves." He searched her eyes, saw the dragon there, fierce and awake. Finally he nodded. Together they rode down the ridge at full gallop, Alistair on his black warhorse, Serafina behind him, arms locked around his waist. The council tent loomed ahead, massive, striped in royal colors, banners snapping in the wind. Guards parted without a word, eyes sliding away from Serafina as if looking at her too long might burn them. Inside, incense choked the air. The council sat in a semicircle, 8-holder alphas, faces carved from stone. Malakor stood at the center, calm, silver sigil gleaming on his chest. Alistair strode forward, Serafina at his side. Lord Varys spoke first, voice flat. "We have evidence the healer descends from Silver Veil traitors. Her power threatens the throne. She must be contained." Malakor unrolled the scroll with deliberate care. "These records are clear. Her bloodline tried to overthrow the crown with dragon fire. She's already demonstrated the ability. Last night she burned her own cottage to cover her tracks. She bewitched you, Your Majesty. We're only protecting the realm." Serafina's stomach lurched. The words hit like a blade. Traitor. Destroyer. Liar. All the things she'd feared they'd call her once the scales showed. Her hands trembled at her sides. She felt the council's eyes like weights, the air suddenly too thick to breathe. But her dragon stirred. Small, instinctive, like a second heartbeat. As her gaze locked on the parchment, something felt wrong. The ink shimmered faintly. A shadow beneath the words, oily and hidden. Her fire answered before her mind caught up, silver flame flickering at her fingertips and widened. Serafina stepped forward before Alistair could stop her. She pressed her palm to the scroll. The parchment glowed. Letters writhed, accusations dissolved like smoke, revealing hidden text beneath. A royal pardon from centuries ago, absolving Silver Veil of all charges. The tent went deathly still. Malakor's face drained of color. Alistair's voice sliced the quiet. Shadowroo Tink. Invisible unless purified. You forgot she can burn away lies. Vera cleared his throat. This changes. Malakor moved. The dagger flashed from his sleeve, straight for Seraphina's throat. But Alistair was faster. He caught Malakor's wrist and twisted hard. The dagger clattered. Alistair slammed Malakor face first onto the table, claws at his throat, drawing thin lines of blood. You've poisoned this kingdom for years, Alistair snarled. Blackmail. Dark rites. The forced bond attempt on me. That was your cousin, wasn't it? You purged Silver Veil to keep their power from threatening your schemes. And now you try to kill my mate. Malakor laughed, choked wet. You think killing me ends it? My allies are already moving. The council will never accept a dragon queen. They'll tear you both apart. Alistair's claws pressed deeper. Then they'd die next. Malakor gasped, blood trickling down his neck. You can't prove anything. The council, Vera's voice was quiet, still. We see the truth. And we see a king willing to bleed for his mate. And a mate who can purify lies. Malakor's eyes darted, wild, calculating. Then he lunged, not for Seraphina but for the table, snatching a small vial of black liquid. Poison. He raised it to his lips. Alistair moved fast, desperate, but it was too late. Malakor swallowed, convulsed. Foam bubbled at his mouth. He collapsed, body jerking once, twice, then went limp. Vera arose slowly, face ashen. He chose death over judgment. Alistair stared at the body, claws retracting one by one. He chose cowardice. The council exchanged glances, sharp, uneasy. Vera's voice cut the quiet. The charges against the healer are dismissed. The forged evidence is revealed. We stand corrected. They turned to leave. Alistair's arm locked around her waist. Outside, snow fell heavier, muffling the world in white. Seraphina leaned into him, voice low. It's over. Alistair's jaw was tight. Not yet. He had allies. They'll scatter, but some will strike again. She nodded once. Then we'll be ready. He stopped, turning her to face him in the swirling snow. Flakes caught in her lashes, melted on her cheeks. He brushed them away with his thumb, touch lingering. I almost lost you. But you didn't. She rose on her toes and kissed him, soft and fierce. We won. His arms tightened until she could feel his heart beat against hers. I'm taking you home. To the castle. No more hiding. She smiled against his lips. They mounted his horse together, her in front, his arms locked around her waist. The bond flared brighter, steadier, a living flame between them. But the ride back was too quiet. Halfway down the ridge, the first arrow came out of the dark. It struck Alistair's shoulder, deep, barbed, punching through leather and muscle with a wet thud. He grunted, blood blooming instant and hot. The horse reared in terror. Seraphina screamed as they tumbled into the snow, rolling hard across frozen ground. More arrows hissed. 3, 4, Thun king into drifts around them. Shadows detached from the pines. 6 figures, cloaked and masked, moving with lethal precision. Malakor's sister stepped forward last, dark hair whipping in the wind, pale eyes gleaming with hate. You killed my brother, she hissed. Alistair staggered to his feet, blood soaking his shirt in seconds, claws already out. Run, Seraphina. I'm not leaving you. She rose beside him, scales rippling across her arms, wings straining against her back. The assassins advanced. Alistair roared, wolf surging, and met the first two in a blur of gold and fury. Jaws closed on one throat, claws tore through another's chest. Blood sprayed across white snow, steaming in the cold. But the third slipped behind him, dagger plunging into his side, twisting. Pain detonated through the bond. Seraphina felt it like her own ribs splintering. She roared, dragon voice shaking the ridge. Her wings snapped free, iridescent blazing in the moonlight. She exhaled a purifying inferno, silver flame roaring toward the attackers. To scream as fire consumed them, cloaks igniting, flesh blackening and peeling. But the sister was faster. She flung the vial. black liquid coursing through the air. It shattered at Serafina's feet. Shadow smoke billowed up, thick and oily, coiling around her legs, her wings tightening like living chains. The dragon thrashed, wings beating uselessly as the magic bound her power, squeezing tighter with every heartbeat. Alistair staggered toward her, blood pouring from his side in dark pulses. "Serafina." The sister laughed, low, cruel. "She can't burn what's already poisoned." Serafina dropped to her knees, fire guttering in her palms. The shadow chains crushed inward. Her vision unduled black at the edges. Alistair reached her, claws slashing at the smoke, but the magic lashed back, slicing across his chest in a deep, wet line. He fell beside her, gasping, blood pooling beneath him. The sister stepped closer, drawing a long curved blade. Moonlights lit along the edge. "I'll take her head first, then yours. The throne will be mine." Serafina's hand found Alistair's in the snow. Through the bond, his pain flooded her. Ribs torn, lung punctured, blood lost stealing strength. Her fear flooded him. Chains crushing her lungs, fire dying inside her. She looked into his eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice breaking. His fingers tightened on hers, slick with blood. "Not yet." With the last of his strength, he shoved himself up, shielding her with his body as Malakor's sister raised the blade high. Serafina screamed. Flame exploded from her core. Wild, silver fire that tore through the shadow chains. The magic shattered in a burst of black smoke and light. Her wings snapped wide. She surged upward, fire roaring from her mouth in a blinding, searing arc. The sister's eyes widened. She'd have aside, but too slow. Flame engulfed her arm, her cloak. She screamed, blade dropping, staggering back as silver fire ate through her. The remaining assassins broke, scattering into the dark, cloak trailing smoke. Serafina collapsed beside Alistair in the snow, wings folding with a soft, exhausted snap. Scales faded from her skin like dying embers. Her hands slammed down on his wounds. Ribs torn open, shoulder pierced through, chest gashed deep. Blood soaked her palms, hot and slick despite the freezing air. She forced fire into her palms, silver and steady, flickering like a candle in wind. The wounds began to close, edges knitting with painful slowness. But the poison was faster. Black veins spidering outward under his skin, dark roots burrowing toward his heart. Alistair's breath rattled. His chest rose once, twice. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. His hand twitched toward hers, fingers too weak to close. She poured harder, dragon heat surging through her veins, burning her from the inside. The bond screamed, her strength draining in great wrenching pulls. His pulse stuttered beneath her palms, erratic, fading. "Come on," she choked, tears freezing on her lashes. "Alistair, stay with me." He coughed once violently, blood spraying across the snow. His eyes fluttered open and focused. Amber dulled to ash. "Serafina." The word was barely sound, more air than voice. His fingers found hers. Weak, trembling. "Hurts. Bad. I know." Her voice cracked. "Hold on for me." The black veins crept higher up his throat toward his jaw. His breathing turned to shallow gasps, each one shorter than the last. His body jerked once, a spasm of pain, then went terrifyingly still. Panic clawed her throat. She pressed harder, flame roaring brighter, searing her own palms. The bond strained like a rope about to snap. Her vision annulling, strength bleeding out of her in waves. She felt the dragon fighting to give more, to burn everything it had, but her body was failing too. His pulse faltered. No, she leaned over him, forehead pressed to his, tears dripping onto his face. "You don't get to leave me." "Not now." A faint tremor ran through him. His fingers tightened just barely on hers. The black veins hesitated. Then, inch by agonizing inch, they retreated, shrinking back from his heart, fading under his skin. His chest rose deeper this time. Color crept into his lips. His eyes focused, locking on hers. "Serafina." His voice was hoarse, wrecked. She sagged against him, trembling so hard her teeth chattered. "You're alive." He exhaled a rough, pained sound that might have been a laugh if he had the strength. His free hand lifted, shaking, cupped the back of her neck. "I'm not dying on you. Not tonight." She searched his face, saw the stubborn truth there. Bloody and alive. She kissed him, slow, desperate, tasting copper and snow and the faint metallic edge of poison still clinging to his lips. The bond steadied. scarred, trembling, but holding. They stayed like that only long enough for his breathing to even out. Then Alistair shifted, wincing, teeth gritted, and pushed himself up on one elbow. "Can't stay here," he rasped. "Castle. Healers." She nodded, helping him stand. He leaned heavily on her shoulder, blood still seeping through the hastily sealed wounds. She wrapped an arm around his waist, wings half unfurled for balance as they staggered toward the surviving horse grazing nervously nearby. The castle gates were like a beacon calling them home. Torchlight flared across the courtyard as guards rushed forward. Shouts, hands reaching, stretchers already prepared. Alistair slid from the saddle. His legs buckled the moment his boots hit stone. Seraphina dropped beside him, catching his face between her hands. "Stay with me," she whispered. He managed a faint, bloody smile. "Always." Healers swarmed, robes snapping in the wind, voices sharp and deficient. They lifted him onto the stretcher, moving fast through torchlit halls and up wide stone stairs to the king's private chambers. Seraphina ran alongside. The room was vast, high ceilings, roaring hearth, a massive bed piled with furs. They laid Alistair down. Salves were smeared, bandages wrapped tight, bitter tonics forced past his lips to fight the lingering poison. An older healer, silver-streaked hair, steady hands, pressed glowing palms to his ribs, murmuring incantations. Seraphina refused to leave his side. She sat on the edge of the bed, one hand gripping his, the other resting on his chest so she could feel every rise and fall. Hours passed. Snow lashed the windows. The bond pulsed, weak at first, then steadier as the poison retreated and his strength returned. When the last healer stepped back, Alistair's breathing was deep and even. Color had returned to his face. The wounds were closed, pink scars already forming. He opened his eyes. Clear now, amber bright. "Seraphina." She exhaled, shakery, relieved. "I thought I lost you. You pulled me back." His hand lifted, still weak, cupped her cheek. She curled against his side, careful of the bandages, head on his shoulder. His arm wrapped around her, heavy, possessive even in weakness. "Full moon's still up," he murmured. "We can finish this properly. No secrets, no half measures." She lifted her head. "You're half dead. I'll live long enough to make you mine." A tired, crook smile curved his lips. She laughed. Soft, watery, stubborn wolf, stubborn dragon. They waited until the healers had gone and the castle quieted. Moonlight streamed through the tall windows, silver and cold. Alistair pushed himself up, wincing but determined, and pulled her to the center of the bed. He cupped her face. "Seraphina, will you have me? All of me. Wolf, scars, crown, everything." She nodded, eyes shining. "Yes." He kissed her, slow, deep, a promise in every brush of lips. His hand slid to her shoulders, thumbs tracing the faint scars where her wings emerged. She shivered, dragon stirring warm and eager beneath her skin. She tilted her head, baring her neck. A small smile curved her lips. "Are you waiting for my next heat? Or can we do this now?" He huffed a soft laugh, eyes darkening with heat. "Now. Definitely now." He leaned in, lips brushing her skin first. Teeth grazed, testing, teasing. She arched into him, fingers threading through his hair. "Alistair." A low growl rumbled from his chest, wolf rising as he bit. Pain flared, sharp, then melted into liquid heat. The bond snapped into place. Fire and storm colliding, silver and gold twisting tight. She felt him fully. Scars, regrets, his fierce obsession beating like a heart. He felt her. Lonely nights, doubts, the dragon's awakening strength. She turned, found the hollow of his throat, and bit back. Power surged. Her fire purifying the last poison races in his blood, his wolf strength flooding her veins. The room glowed soft silver, gold light spilling across the furs. They laid angled, breathing hard, heart sensed in perfect rhythm. He pressed his forehead to hers. "Mine." "Yours," she whispered. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other as the moon climbed higher. Spring came slow to Emberia. Snow melting into rivers, pines greening, the world breathing again. Seraphina stood on the highest balcony of the castle, morning sun warm across her shoulders. Below, the training yard stretched wide and green. Alistair waited in the center, shirtless, scars finally fading against his skin, wolf eyes bright with anticipation. She stepped to the edge, closed her eyes, and let the dragon rise. Wings unfurled. Iridescent, powerful. no longer a struggle but a natural extension of her breath. Scales shimmered along her arms and back, smooth, controlled hers. She leapt. Air caught her like an old friend. She soared higher, higher, circling the yard in wide, lazy loops. The dragon felt light now. Months of practice had taught her how to breathe with the fire, how to guide the wings without pain, how to fold them back without fear. It was no longer a wild thing fighting to be free, it was simply her. Stronger, brighter, whole. Alistair shifted below, golden wolf, massive and gleaming for catching the sun. He bounded across the grass, tail wagging, barking once, playful. Come down, shiny mate. Let me ride you. His wolf voice rolled through the bond, half ease, half plea. Seraphina's dragon laughed and of low. She skimmed the ground, wings brushing grass. Alistair leapt, graceful despite his size, and landed neatly between her shoulders, claws gentle against Kale's, weight perfectly balanced. Hold tight, she sent through the bond. She climbed again, higher this time, wings beating strong and steady. Alistair's wolf clung to her back, muzzle pressed to the base of her neck, inhaling her scent with every gust of wind. His thoughts spilled over, delighted. You have the prettiest wings. She rolled gently mid-air, barrel roll slow and playful so he could feel the thrill without slipping. He yipped pure joy and nipped lightly at the ridge of her wing. She circled once more, then glided down low and graceful, landing lightly on the grass. Alistair slid off her back, shifting mid-step into human form, naked, laughing, hair wild from the wind. Seraphina shifted back, scales fading, wings folding away until she stood barefoot and breathless in the sun. He caught her around the waist, spinning her once before pulling her close. I love watching you fly. Love feeling you under me. Makes me remember the first night you were so scared of losing control. Now look at you. She rested her forehead against his. I was scared of everything back then. Of what I was becoming. Of what it would cost us. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. What about now? Now, she smiled, small, certain now. I know the cost was worth it. Every scar, every fight, every time we almost lost each other. It brought us here. His hand slid to the nape of her neck, thumb tracing the faint scar from his claiming bite. No one can know about tonight, he echoed, voice low, the same words he'd whispered in the glade all those months ago. She laughed softly, tears pricking her eyes. Everyone can know about tonight, she answered. Everyone can know about every night after this. He kissed her again, slower this time, tender, tasting of forever. The bond hummed between them. Fire and storm, wolf and dragon, king and queen, steady, warm, unbreakable. Seraphina pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. Face you again tomorrow? He grinned, wolfish, bright. Only if you let me ride. Deal. Below them, the kingdom moved on. Children laughing in the yard, guards nodding as they passed, banners snapping in the spring breeze. Whispers still followed them sometimes. The healer who became a dragon. The ruthless king who bled for her. The bond that burned away lies and poison and fear. But the whispers no longer carried shame. They carried wonder and hope. If you were captivated by Alistair and Seraphina's fiery and unbreakable bond, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Moonlight Mates Library for more epic, breathtaking romances. What hidden magical bloodline would you want to awaken? A fierce dragon or a loyal wolf? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.